Greetings petrolheads, my name is the Tom and it's time to play another episode of Automation, the car company tycoon game. And I know I've announced something special to happen on my channel this week, and it's about to come true. You can see here, those are the current vector lineup made by Cone Dodger 240. I'll put the link into the description so you guys can check him out. The Vextron is the model that started his lineup. It is a relatively affordable sports coupe, and I'm gonna take a closer look at this thing right here, at all of his cars actually. And yeah, so we have a 3.8 liter V8 with a single overhead cam and 3 valves per cylinder. That's kind of mid-range. It's nothing super special or expensive, but still quite good. The crank and conrods are both cast because this is the entry-level version, and the hyper-eutectic cast pistons are also rather cheap. It is naturally aspirated, runs on regular fuel with multi-point injection and standard intake. The exhausts are the appropriate size this time and short cast headers, a high flow three-way catalytic converter, one straight through and one reverse flow muffler. Makes 241 horsepower, 335 Newton meters of torque. The rev limit is 6,400 RPM. The economy is less than 20%. It's actually a little bit low, maybe. We'll see. The responsiveness of 39 is actually quite good. So is the smoothness of 59.1. And it weighs 180 kilograms. What's it made of? Aluminium. Okay, no fancy lightweight ALSI. Good. Now for the trim, we have a 5-speed single clutch gearbox with a viscous LSD, pretty average spacing with a good amount of overdrive. We have 235 section rear tires. That's for the 241 horsepower, that's actually not that much rubber to handle that. Alloy wheels, vented discs, no 2 pistons front and 1 piston rear, but the size is pretty big, so the braking distance is really short. We got a semi-clad undertray, because again this is the baseline model. 4 seats with a sport interior, standard CD, power steering and anti-lock brakes, standard safety. No traction or stability control, huh? Gonna run those 241 horsepower through the really narrow rear tires, and not even put traction or stability control in this car. Okay, yeah, well, it's a car for enthusiasts and for the driver who knows what they're doing, I guess. It uses progressive springs, gas monotube, and what appears to be a sport setup, but with a little bit, no, actually pretty much the sport setup here. It weighs less than 1200 kilograms, so it's rather light. The drivability is 42.8 and the sportiness is 43.4, so those are pretty balanced stats here. 28.2 comfort is not too bad actually, considering we don't have any fancy interior here. The Prestige 25.5, probably because of the top speed. No, actually it's not that high. And the safety of 40.0 is also pretty good. Let's see what this thing does around the effort track. The 0 to 100 time is 6.1 seconds. 129.92. That's not bad for a baseline model. As far as price goes, I would probably say this one would be like $35,000 or something like that. And but there is the CDR version of this car as well, which has an updated engine. We can see here that it now uses I-beam steel conrods and lightweight forged pistons, so it's more expensive on the bottom end. It is still the 3.8 liter V8 though, and it does have more quality on the bottom end here. The compression ratio is 11.5 with a relatively medium sharp cam profile. We have VVT in here. It's still naturally aspirated, and we now get a performance intake, and it's running on super unleaded fuel here. The fuel mixture is 12.9 to 1. That's actually quite rich. And we got long tubular exhausts on this one, so better exhaust systems for better performance. We are now making 327 horsepower and 387 newton meters of torque, but the torque curve, like most of the torque, comes in after 4,000 RPM. So this is not a bottom end engine, but to compensate for that it revs to 7,100 RPM. Let's see how it stacks up then. It's got a manual 6-speed this time, with still a good amount of overdrive, 304 estimated top speed here. No, the estimated top speed is this here, 284. 304 is what the gearing would allow. But anyway, it's now got a gear that is as opposed to the viscous on the standard model. We still only got 235mm rear tires. Forgot to flare the wheel arches, huh? Alloy wheels. Vented discs, still the same brake setup as before, and pretty much the same cooling airflow as well. Still semi-clad. A little bit of downforce going on. I don't know what you were trying to achieve here, Cone, but the front downforce, like you got lift on the front but downforce on the rear, so your car is probably gonna be relatively, so your car is not as quick as it could be through slower corners. Here we have 2 seats, sport interior, standard CD. Doesn't the baseline have 4 seats? Am I mistaken here? But this one only has 2, so it should be lighter as well. This still seems pretty much the same. Yeah, it is lighter, so it indeed only has 2 seats. And launch control has still no traction or stability control. 41.2 drivability, 50.2 sportiness, a little bit less comfort due to the lack of rear seats, higher prestige because of more horsepower, and probably higher top speed. Yeah, there it is. And safety went down just a little bit because this car lost some weight. 5.5 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour is probably because of those narrow rear tires. It would be faster if it had wider ones. But again, 127.43 is pretty good around the Erfurt track. And overall, how do you guys like the styling? I think it's pretty simple, but it looks distinct, it looks exotic, it looks different from the mainstream for sure. And those little vents underneath the taillights and also the headlights, they make the car really stand out, as well as the signature vector grille down here. I think it looks exotic, it looks up for the task, and the quad exhausts really show this car's sporty ambitions. Yeah, let's just go ahead and select the the next Vector model, because you're probably excited as to what it is. The Radian is also something that you guys have seen if you regularly watch Cone Dodger's channel. It is a sporty saloon, and actually he advertises it, actually the other one, the RB2. He advertises this RB2 version as quote-unquote the cutting edge of sports sedans. Let's see if it is. We still got the same engine that we just saw in the stronger version of the Vextron, so it's exactly the same there, no changes. A 6-speed manual gearbox with a lot of overdrive. Viscous LSD. What the hell is up with those tires? Medium compound road 195s. Are you really gonna suggest that 195mm rear tires are going to make this 327 horsepower car the cutting edge of sports sedans? I mean, let's just look a little bit deeper into it, shall we? Not to do this thing any injustice. And we got vented discs, front and rear, 2 piston front, 1 piston rear. Lid 5mm smaller in the front and 5mm bigger on the rear compared to the Vextron. And then we have 61 on the pad type, so it's a little bit more aggressive. 50-50 in terms of wing angles. We got fully clad under tray. Insufficient cooling for the engine, so you don't want to drive this car on a very hot summer day. 5 seats, premium interior, standard CD, entertainment, traction control this time. This is very necessary. Standard safety and progressive springs, gas motor tube dampers. We've seen that on the Vextron as well, and a sport suspension setup, but with a little bit higher ride height. So as a result of that, we are getting 47.4 drivability, which is actually a little bit surprising. I would expect it to be a little bit lower with tires this narrow. 41.6 sportiness, 34.3 comfort, 24.9 prestige, and 43.0 safety. We're only gonna get minus 4.2% penalty for the wheel spin. But yeah, minus 4.2% for the wheel spin. Let's actually turn the traction control off and see how much wheel spin we get then, because you know, an owner of this car might want to do some awesome burnouts. And there we go, minus 16.7% wheel spin. I was expecting a number like that because because of the power to rubber ratio, if you want to call it like that. And we're gonna go to the test track. Yeah, 6.1 seconds 0 to 100. Obviously limited by those tires. 130.98. I don't know how this time compares to a BMW E46 M3, which is the obvious rival if you're gonna claim your 2002 sports sedan to be the cutting edge of sports sedans. Like the M3 E46 is the obvious rival in this case. As far as the styling goes, this looks pretty aggressive, more aggressive than the Vextron, I think, on the front end at least, with those sharp pointy headlights and the vents right there. Also, the badge is now down here between the two grills that make the signature grill vector, as opposed to up there. We have some pretty simple taillights here. Only 2 exhausts, nothing too fancy there, and a lip as a kind of spoiler back here. I like that little detail. And overall, I think the sloppiness really hurts this car's performance. So you might wanna try and be a little bit more detail oriented next time, Cone. And yeah, so we're gonna look into the third model though, which is the Kaysen. And the model is called Wagon. This is also a car that you guys have seen if you are following Cone Dodger's channel regularly, because he uploaded it yesterday or the day before yesterday, I'm not sure. But in any case, this is a sports estate car, or wagon if you want to call it that. It comes with the baseline engine that we've also seen in the base Vextron, the 241 horsepower version, so I'm not gonna go over that engine again. But we can see one positive thing right away. He has flared the wheel arches. Also, it is all-wheel drive for once. It's got a drivability of 63.5, sportiness 32.4, comfort 36.3, prestige 23.2, and safety is really good, 59.2. Let's check the details here. We got a good amount of overdrive and a relatively low top speed for the power. An open differential with 47 to 53 power distribution, medium compound road tires, 17 inches, vented discs, pretty small size actually, pretty small, but the stopping distance is still really good. We got a fully clad under tray and yeah, no downforce. The cooling is more than enough. We got 5 seats, only standard interior and standard CD. And then we do have traction control, no stability control, because this is all-wheel drive. We don't need that stability control in here. Advanced safety, that's why the safety stat was so high. The same suspension setup that we've seen before, again with a sport setup and a little bit higher ride height. And yeah, I think those stats are really good. Also the reliability 68.0 is pretty good, and the utility 50.0. This is a practical car. Economy is 9.68 liters per 100 kilometers. You could do better than that, but it's not terrible. Let's not forget that, like, say, a BMW 330i Touring would definitely use more than that. I'm just saying. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour may be a little bit disappointing, given the power and the grip that we now have from the all-wheel drive. 6.7 seconds. Oh, we have an automatic gearbox this time. So that's like the automatic gearbox in this game, and that's not your fault, Cone, but that automatic gearbox just takes forever to shift. It hurts the acceleration time so much. So it's not his fault, you can't blame him for that. It is, however, much better for the comfort and for the drivability. So I think overall it was probably the correct choice to go for it. And aesthetically, I would like to point out that this car looks a lot more, or let's say the other way around, it looks a lot less aggressive, more quote-unquote friendly, like more appealing, more neutral than the other cars. It's got a little bit of a bonnet hump going on there, just for the, you know, the horsepower freaks out there. We get some LED rear braking lights, or reverse lights probably, and some Ferrari style tail lights. To be honest, I don't think these fit the overall style of this rear end of the estate car that well, but I do like the little detail again with the lip as a little spoiler, and it performs well, I think, and especially for the cost. It costs less than the baseline Vextron, if I remember that figure correctly. So yeah, definitely this is a pretty good car. And so for the final car, we have the Vector Collinear. This is... wait a second. Oh, it didn't load the engine. So I'm gonna have to choose it. I'm sorry guys, but I have to do this. Where is the... come on, there it is. That is the car that is the engine that this car comes with. Oh, so no, all the trim is lost then. So I'm not gonna bother with that. I'm sorry, I can't review this car as of yet because the trim's lost. Aesthetically, I think it looks pretty sharp and aggressive. Definitely exotic, like it is something different at the very least. And the Vector signature grille fits it pretty well, I think. Also the fog lights up here rather than down in this area where the vents are kind of give it a unique touch, and so does this little bonnet hump and the vents on the side here. Yeah. I'm sorry, Cone, I can't review this car because the trim doesn't load. I would have loved to review it all in all, but I can't justify, you know, just going for a trim that I would have chosen, because it's your car, and if the game is gonna decide not to load the trim, then well, it's nobody's fault, right? But if I did trim the car the way I would do it, then it would be my fault if it is misrepresentative of what it should normally be. So I'm gonna avoid that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, please click the like button, it helps out a great deal. Also show Count Ultra some love over at the link in the description below. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.